Thanks for joining us today for My Local Government. This is a three-part series it is an educational series and it is a webinar. This is part two. Last week we had our My Local Government 101. Thanks to everyone who did join us for that one. You learned some really basic things about what is government, how city and government work together, and hopefully you took some information out of that session. But today we are going to be talking a little bit more about budget and budget management. This deals with the taxes and all that good stuff, the money part. I am not the person that is going to be bringing this session because I don't know enough about it, but we do have Derek Smith. He is a senior budget analyst with the Budget Management Services division, and he will be guiding us today through his presentation. So without any further ado, Derek, please take over.
All right, thank you. I'm Derek Smith, as she said. I work for the City of Raleigh's Budget and Management Services. And today I'll just give you an overview of how our city budgets and why it's important. All right, so, the basic question, what is a budget? We have the definition here. It's a plan for the expenditure of a usual fixed resource, such as money or time, during a given period. But a simple way to think about budget, it's having a plan for how you're going to spend your money. Budgeting is simply balancing your expenses with your income. For us, it's balancing our expenditures with our revenues. And if you don't balance and you spend more than you make, then you run into problems, and that's not a good thing. So why do we have a budget? First, transparency. We do an annual budget, so we're transparent with how we're spending the community's tax dollars. It's good public policy and management. And above all, it's the law. So, each year in Raleigh, we do an annual budget. Some places do a biannual budget every other year, they do a budget for like 2 years. Regardless, the budget indicates a community's priorities with the projected revenues that they're going to have and the cost expenses that they're going to have. And we line up in the budget what our revenues are going to pay for specifically with the departments, the services that they're going to provide, and whom they're going to provide those services for and why they exist. We work on the development of a budget. It's more than just number crunching. The budget reflects our priorities within the strategic plan and takes into consideration the needs and the priorities of all our community members. And when we talk about budget and it being the law, our budget season is it runs from January 1st through June 30th. So as I talk to this presentation and I say fiscal year, that's what I'm referring to, that time frame of July 1st through June 30th. It doesn't go by the calendar year. So Budget Management Services, where I work at, we help departments develop their budget. There's 4 main priorities. First being we help departments develop their priorities, and we support departments, we assist them. And there's over 24 different offices, departments within the city: police, fire, Raleigh Water, planning and development, communications. We assist those different departments as they create their budgets. We have over 4,344 full-time employees, and we have 5 analysts that work with those departments and those employees to determine what they're going to budget for the year and what their priorities are. For capital improvement program coordination, that CIP, we refer to capital improvement program as CIP, and those are the long-term projects that take large funding capacity. They're usually projects that are at least $25,000 or more for equipment or structures, and when we have something in the CIP, we expect it to last for at least 10 years. And that's going to be like the construction of buildings, roads, parks. And we fund these things through our bonds and through debt. Like if you take out debt from like credit, and we do this on a 5-year plan. Our strategic planning and performance management within our department, this has shifted a little bit. We also now have a strategy and innovation department who will help us and assist with that. But this is just helping departments plan out how they're going to use their resources, and then we look at the performance of the programs and see, you know, how much and how well those programs are doing in a quantifiable measure. And we continue to produce those services if they're doing well, or we'll reevaluate if we need to provide new services moving forward based on some of the performance measures that we follow. And then grants management. Our department leads the city efforts in coordinating grants throughout the city. Recently, we had an influx of grant activity through the American Rescue Plan, if you're familiar with that, or the CARES funding, which was a lot of funding, millions and millions of dollars that we got from the federal government. And so we have our team of 2 employees that work with multiple departments that have individuals that work on grants within those departments, and making sure that we're spending that funding appropriately and staying within the guidelines of those grants. So the budget process, how does it work? Well, we prepare a budget starting in October by forecasting what our future revenues are going to be. This is the start of like an 8-month process where we review, like I said, the revenue trends, determine how much funding income we'll have for the year, and we look at known increases. The insurance and employee salaries being the main increases that we know we're going to have and are usually the most costly expenses to our budget. We review what the council has committed to funding for the next year and what we've said are going to be our commitments for the next fiscal year. And then we look at what new facilities are going to be opening. With each new facility that opens, there is cost associated with that. There will be, water, electric, sewer, just like you have for your house. Those things that we'll have to increase budgets for. Sorry about that. And the starting point of our review each year is normally the previous year's budget. That's what we look at each year. When we start to build that base, that's our starting point. Next, we start to work with each department and we prioritize what their needs are going to be. We review their current budget and we see where resources have had the best impacts, and we work with them on any new projects or programs that they're going to be requesting for the next year. We help them build their case for why those new projects are needed. Also, departments will start to provide us with the revenues that they anticipate making over the next year, so that way we know how much funding we're going to have, how much available money we'll have. So for instance, like Parks will provide us updates on how much they anticipate receiving for admissions to their recreation facilities and their programs. And our planning and development department will provide us updates for how much they're getting in fees for their permits that they have. Talking about those fees, you'll see if you ever look at our budget book, we have a list of basically all the fees within the city and the departments that outlines how much the city charges for whether it's activities or permits and things and services. After we work with departments and balance their individual budgets, we provide the city manager's office with new requests that the departments have provided for staff, services, or projects, and we review and prioritize those items with them. During that time, the budget office will start to finalize those revenues and expenses for the projects for the next year. Then in around May and June, we will come to the city council with our proposed budget, and we'll evaluate the staff recommendations and make any budget changes before adopting that budget. So that's the process that we're kind of leading up to right now as we start to finalize our budget for the next fiscal year in FY23. So this kind of just outlines that budget process and provides a snapshot of what I've just discussed. Like I said, it runs about 8 months from October to the start of July. And sorry about that. And this helps departments, this whole entire process helps us each year figure out, what we're going to be doing moving forward. In those down months, I really won't call them off months, but we work with departments to prioritize what they didn't get funded in the fiscal year through the budget process, and to build a better case for them moving forward into the next year if they're looking to try and bring that back and get funding and support for those items. So this current year, FY22, we had some themes in budget, and it was elevating the workforce and elevating operations and infrastructure. The current budget recognized the importance in investing in our greatest asset, which is our employees, and based on our market reviews that we do each year for our pay ranges and our compensation system, we continue to invest and reflect on a sustainable approach to remaining competitive in pay. So our living wage, we look at that each year, and that's how much we say it costs to live basically like a comfortable lifestyle, and that increased from like $36,000 to about $37,000, almost $38,000, and it will increase again coming into FY23. But back to FY22, we focused on recovery and reimagining our service delivery model. Basically, after we were getting out of COVID, so out of FY21 and the COVID. So several reductions in FY21 did take place, but we reinstated those reductions within the budget. And that included things like the fireworks for July 4th, adding additional employees to different programs and departments through the city. And we had a citywide hiring freeze. And so within that citywide hiring freeze, we reduced that from vacancy credit, which was 2.5% to 1% in FY22, which results in about a $2.5 million in savings for the city. And when I talk about elevating infrastructure, major funding categories for infrastructure included transit-oriented, I can't speak. It's been a long day, sorry guys. Transit-oriented site acquisition of $16 million. We worked on public-private partnerships for land for affordable housing that runs into about $28 million. And we did things like a $7.6 million park bond for infrastructure. So those were some of the key themes and things that we provided in FY22's budget. Now, this goes, I know part of this theme in this series was, voting and trying to get people involved in local government. So our strategic focus areas that we have in the city, there's 6 key focus areas that council adopts as part of the strategic plan. And that is the council's priorities over a 5-year period, where they'd like us to focus resources from the city on developing these key areas of the city. So one of those key areas is arts and cultural resources. And within that, there's 3 different objectives with 8 initiatives that departments and employees focus on promoting the arts and cultural resources within the city of Raleigh. And that's like, so, this is the way that these city supports the creative community. Within our budget book, you will see that this is one of the first documents inside that budget book, and it outlines these key focus areas and goes into greater detail of what we try to provide within each area. Economic development and innovation, that's also another area that the city focuses on, which has 4 main objectives, and there's 16 different initiatives outlined within there. And helping to grow and develop businesses within the city of Raleigh, that's mainly what this area focuses on. Growth in natural resources, there's 4 objectives and 17 initiatives outlined within here that the council prioritizes in for things like expanding greenway connectivity and protecting our natural resources within the city. Organizational excellence is another area, and it has 5 objectives with 17 different initiatives that we focus on. And this helps us provide efficient and effective services within the city and kind of outlines those priorities. And as you can see in the chat here, I appreciate it. Luis is providing you a link to our strategic plan, and it goes, like I said, into greater detail on what these priorities are. Safe, vibrant, and healthy communities, that has 5 objectives with 20 initiatives outlined in it, and it's about promoting a safe community within the city. And a lot of these initiatives within here focus on public safety and affordable housing. And transportation and transit kind of speaks for itself also. 5 objectives with 16 different initiatives outlined in there, and it mainly focuses on transportation means within the city and how we can improve those for pedestrians and bicyclists and our roadways for drivers. And then getting into our FY22 budget, outside of those priorities, this is kind of where the money comes from and how it's spent. That's what I'll talk about now. So revenues, as I said earlier, it's basically like your income if you're looking at it from your own personal perspective. And within our revenue here, we have basically a $1 billion budget each year. And our revenues have to match our expenses. We have to have a balanced budget. So as a city, our revenues want to have 27% of our $1 billion budget comes from property taxes. So if you own a home, part of your money here goes towards this. And as a city, we generate, out of that 27%, it's about $290 million come from property taxes. Our water and sewer revenues, that's about $230 million. The fees that we charge as a city, that's going to be about $171 million. And intergovernmental, which that refers to intergovernmental expenses. Those are like our North Carolina state taxes from electricity, gas, beer and wine, telecommunications. That's where that money comes from. And that is about $140 million that we get each year for revenues. Sales tax, when you go to a store and you buy an item and they have that sales tax on there, that makes up about $113 million of our revenues. Fund balance and special reserves, that refers to which is like leftover money from the previous year that wasn't expended, and that makes up about $74 million. Our grants, which I talked about, comes from like the state and federal government. That makes about 3%, which is about $27 million of our revenues. So that right there is, when we talk about our city's budget is $1 billion, that is the full picture of how that's made up. This is where we get those funds from. And next slide, this is where that money goes. So out of that $1 million, we have our highest expense is our personnel expenses. That'd be salaries for employees, and that's about $280 million goes towards that. Our operations, that is about $275 million. And our capital improvements, like which I talked about earlier, those long-term projects that we fund each year, that is approximately $220 million of that. Employee benefits, that's another $130 million. And debt services, that's about $162 million when we're paying off those debts. And that kind of makes up that whole entire budget. And talking about our big picture with that all funding, which I just showed you, had like our capital improvement projects, but the general fund reserve, this is general fund. When I talk about that, that's making up our operations. Sorry, I was reading a comment there. Our general fund, this includes like our property taxes for our general fund services, and in that, the 53% is about $212 million of the 543. Sales tax, once again, our highest, one of our higher revenues, and that makes up $113 million. When you look at a city's budget, it's usually best to have a budget that has a lot of the revenues coming in from property taxes, since that is a more consistent source of funding versus sales tax. If your sales tax are really high numbers, each year you might have difficulty paying for certain programs and projects year after year, because sales tax usually fluctuates a lot more than your property tax does. You know, it depends on how much people are spending, is how much sales tax you will get each year. The expense side of this, like I said, a lot of our money goes to public safety expenses. So when you see that, that's going to be our police and fire department. And a lot of that is going to be the salary for those departments. You know, we have 908 positions in police department, and we have 626 positions within our fire department. So like I said earlier, full-time employees total, we have about 4,344 employees. So that is a large percent of our employees. And like I said, our salaries and benefits make up a lot of those expenses. So that's why you see like public safety as the highest expense for the city. Then we have our infrastructure and public service departments that make up about 20% of that, which is about $106 million. Our general government is at 14%, which is about $74 million of that 543. And that's going to be your offices with your your smaller offices, offices of emergency management, city manager's office, strategy and innovation, office of sustainability, office of internal audit. Those are our general government departments. And more in depth and more information is provided in our budget book. And, you know, that documents 340 pages, and it can provide you an overview of, you know, the departments and what they're spending their money on. So some of the major additions we had in this fiscal year, we're currently in FY22, was, like I said, the penny for parks, which was, when I say penny, that is a penny for your property taxes, and that 1 penny from all of the property taxes that are collected in the city equals out to about $7.6 million. So we had approximately $7.6 million that we could use for park maintenance, infrastructure, park maintenance facilities, and towards our greenway system when we added that penny to the property taxes. And then in FY22, we added several positions within the city for our Parks and Recreation Department. Raleigh Police Department, we added a Greenway unit, which I believe was like 7 employees. Engineering Services, Transportation, and our Raleigh Fire Department had the addition of some employees this year. And then we had a variety of capital improvement projects, which I kind of talked about earlier. And we created an Office of Strategy and Innovation and an Office of Community Engagement, which I think has a total now between the two offices of about 10 employees when we created those offices. And then we did a minority women business study that looked at equity and inclusion for those businesses and how we could help them get started, and the ones that are currently here, how we could help them be successful. So we funded a study on that this year. So as I talk about all those things, how can you get involved? Well, in the budget process, I left it up here, March, during that time of the year, we have a community survey that gets sent out to the community, and members can go online during that time and kind of provide their 2 cents on where they want that $1 billion budget to go. What do they see as priorities for the city? And this year, I think we had 1,800 responses for that community survey. And then during our budget process in March and April, the budget department goes forward in front of the city council, and we provide an overview of what the departments are going to be spending their money on, increases to the budget, whether it's for stormwater, our water rates, or our solid waste services increases, if there's going to be any in there during that first meeting in March 14th and the April 11th meeting. You can see those meetings on YouTube if you're wanting to get some additional information on those and anything that was proposed then. And then May 17th, we're going to provide a budget presentation with all of our proposals. And that is something, as a community member, that I look forward to even before I worked in this office, to get a better understanding of what our funds are going to be, our tax dollars are going to be going towards. And then in June, we have a public hearing on the proposed budget, which this year will be June 7th at 7 p.m., where individuals from the community can come and provide their feedback on our proposed budget. And I know I'm running out of time here. It's already getting here. So if you have any questions or any follow-up, you can contact me at dereksmith@raleighnc.gov. I'd be happy to provide any additional information, answer any questions that you might have. And that is all my time. Sorry, Luis. I think it's on you now.
Thank you so much, Derek. Yep, we are. So just 2 more minutes. Luis, are you available? And we're just going to mention the Raleigh Neighborhood College one more time, because all this information that you have been getting, I know they're very kind of condensed in a very short amount of time, but all of this content is straight from the Raleigh Neighborhood College. Luis, are you there? So you can talk a little bit about it? His audio. Okay, it's okay. The Raleigh Neighborhood College is a residents and neighbors capacity building program presented by the City of Raleigh Neighborhood Enrichment Services, which is a division of the Housing and Neighborhoods Department. The participants learn about local government services in Raleigh and in Wake County through this free series, and it is 10 classes. I'm actually a part of the class right now, and it is very, very informational. I advise everyone to join. So they have a spring session and a fall session. Can you go to the next slide, Derek? And here are the benefits about joining the program. It offers participants the tools to become actively involved in neighborhoods and community organizations. Many graduates serve as resources for their neighbors or go on to become leaders in local neighborhood organizations and other groups. And students meet Raleigh and Wake County staffers who provide an inside look at the services and programs offered by the city of Raleigh and Wake County, and you already have a little bit of taste of that. So it would be a lot more of this and a lot more in depth. And then after 10 weeks of classes and a couple of projects that you have to do, the students do graduate. I saw a few questions on the chat. I know we don't have enough time to answer everything, but thank you so much to Taisha and to Luis for answering and keeping an eye on the chat. If you have any other questions or if your questions have not been answered, please go on and reach out to any of us. Go ahead, Derek. The next slide is going to be Luis's information, and this is for the Raleigh Neighborhood College. Take a screenshot, take your phone and take a picture, a good old pen and paper. I'm gonna go ahead and give you a few minutes to just go ahead and take that info. And now it's mine, so it's all right, because we are over. So this is my information. If you want more of anything, please go ahead and send me a message. All three sessions are being recorded. And at the end of the series, we are going to make them available on our website. So if you are interested, please visit our website once the series is over, or just shoot me an email and I'm more than happy to share them with you if you can't find them. But we will definitely go ahead and make these available for everyone and share them. If you're a teacher, especially, these are things that we need to teach our children. We need to teach our teenagers, because guess what? They grow up to be City of Raleigh residents, and they grow up to be voters, and we want them to be involved in our community, and we want them to understand what's going on. So I know that was a lot. Thank you so much, Derek. Thank you everyone for being here. We really appreciate it. And we do hope, last slide, Derek, that you join us for the last one, which is going to be next week. This is our last session, and this is about stormwater. So if you don't know anything, or if you're kind of like, they have a lot of things going on, and actually they have a few projects coming up which are really important, and they may affect you. So please join us for the last session. And again, thank you everyone. Have a wonderful night.